Hey y'all, it's Tonette. BJ and I are enjoying this look back, and we have more answers to where y'all been. These are our experiences and our opinion. We hope it is informative, inspirational, and entertaining. In this episode, we talk about our travels the second half of 2018, including family reunions, a hurricane escape, and visiting the last 3 states in the continental U.S. We also share how we fight fear. To get notified of future videos, subscribe to this channel and choose the notification bell. The second half of 2018 was just as adventurous as the first. Over Labor Day weekend, we attended my family reunion on Saturday and BJ's family reunion on Sunday in Northeast Florida and Southeast Georgia. It was a great experience, and we had a chance to fellowship with family while enjoying some great food. Then on September 13th, Hurricane Florence was scheduled to hit eastern North Carolina, and we escaped to Tysons Corner just outside of DC. We worked throughout the day and explored the DC area in the evening. We went to the mall, tried some new restaurants, and went to the National Harbor. We even hopped on an HBCU campus. Our Northwest winter adventure began on December 20th after we rented an expedition to make everyone comfortable. We drove overnight to get to Kansas, and we took the intimidating Interstate 40 west. It wasn't that bad at night because we couldn't see the cliffs. However, we still came across cliffs in Nashville, Tennessee. We stopped in Kansas City, Missouri for barbecue, and when we arrived at our hotel in Leavenworth, we rewarded ourselves with a treat from a nearby bakery. Later, we ate dinner at a small bistro near the waterfront. On December 22nd, our destination was Salt Lake City, Utah, and most of the Interstate 80 was an awesome drive. Though we saw mountains off to the side, there were hardly any cliffy areas. In Utah, our visibility was low because the windshield wiper fluid line seemed to be frozen. This caused us to get off the exit several times to clear the windshield. We arrived safely, then the wiper fluid flowed effortlessly. On the 23rd, we started driving to Portland, Oregon at 1 a.m., so the first part of our trip was in the dark. We could tell we were ascending and descending, however, we couldn't see what surrounded us. We stopped in Jerome, Idaho to inflate a tire, then we ate breakfast at Cracker Barrel in Boise, Idaho. While it wasn't new and it wasn't local, we did eat potatoes in Idaho. After Boise, the sun came up and we saw rolling hills on Interstate 84. Some areas included cliffs, but there was a good shoulder on the road. Then we were engulfed with mountains higher than skyscrapers near Baker City, Oregon. The roads were winding and the views were picturesque, with snow-capped mountains and trees perfect for Christmas decor. Although we've walked near skyscrapers before, for some reason these monstrous mountains made us feel really, really small. The drive near Arlington, Oregon was simply amazing. As a passenger, I was able to enjoy the Columbia River that flowed between Oregon and Washington and see the clouds hang low over the river and the mountains. Even the cows had great views while grazing the foothills. This area included Columbus River Highway, Lewis Clark Trail, and the Oregon Trail. We passed 3 dams and the Columbia River Gorge. There were dozens of parks along the scenic byway and even some waterfalls. Water calms me, so this section of our drive was great for me. In Portland, we went to a vibrant Art Deco neighborhood for lunch, and although the parking was scarce, the food was good. Then we drove to Seattle and ran into traffic several times, but there were no major cliffs. We noticed a lot of trees that looked like Christmas trees. Their shape was perfect, and all they needed were lights, ornaments, and an angel. Later, we discovered they were Douglas firs. We arrived at the Embassy Suite in time for the evening reception. We'd never seen a drink machine at a reception or the staff preparing Shirley Temples in a pitcher. We'd eaten so well earlier that the reception appetizers were enough for dinner. Christmas Eve was spent exploring Seattle. We took our Seahawks fan by the stadium, hung out at the public market, and went to the park with amazing views. In addition, we tried several new restaurants. Then Christmas Day was a chill day. We opened gifts, played with them, relaxed, and went to an Asian buffet for dinner. On December 26th, we headed back east, and Interstate 90 was our road of choice. It was really not a bad drive at all. There are lots of 360-degree views of snow-capped mountains. We passed through forests, deserts, and a mixture. I drove nearly 7 hours of the trip, and I was in awe at the views just from the corners of my eyes. We were blessed with a white winter view, but the Department of Transportation had done a great job with clearing the roads. The water that calmed me this time was St. Regis and Clark Fork River, which escorted us through hours of mountains and winding roads and a forest of Christmas trees. When we arrived at the Homewood Suites in Bozeman, Montana, we were happy to see another family-friendly evening social. We had one child that wasn't feeling well, and the other two just wanted to get to their games and play. So we decided to make this evening reception their dinner and go on a date to a burger joint that wasn't that far from the hotel because there was still snow on the ground. We passed an ice cream parlor on our way to eat dinner, and since dinner was awful, we stopped there on the way back and got a treat for us and the kids. On December 27th, our plans were to travel to Fargo, North Dakota. However, a blizzard across North Dakota caused us to adjust them. We chose to travel south where the snow was scheduled to be cleared, and our new destination was Denver, Colorado. Interstate 90 to Interstate 25 was mostly clear. There was still lots of mountains and a few icy spots, but it had good shoulders on the highway. We prayed for no accidents or road closures and that we arrived in Denver before dark. Halfway there, we went to an urgent care in Casper, Wyoming, and found out our teen daughter had strep throat. She was given a few shots and we picked up some prescriptions. Then we continued on our journey southeast. Since we lost some daylight driving time, we decided to stay overnight in Cheyenne, Wyoming to get off the road before the snow turned into ice. This was our first time staying at a True by Hilton, and it was nice. We ordered pizza for the kids before we went on a date to a steakhouse. Walking in the door, you could tell this was one of those special occasion restaurants that some people visit 2 or 3 times a year. It wasn't extremely fancy, but there was a level of sophistication that most restaurants don't have. We're glad we stopped in Cheyenne and we found this steakhouse because it was the best steak we ever had. And all of the dishes were prepped with love. We even took some back to the kids and they devoured the steak. On December 28th, our destination was Kansas City, Missouri, and we were a little worried about Interstate 70 because of the amount of snow recently. However, 90% of our drive was pretty smooth. We saw some recent accidents and cars that were stranded overnight, so we were happy and blessed to make it to Kansas City without incident. Before we checked into the hotel, we stopped to an Italian deli full of Kansas City Chiefs gear. Then, after traveling through the mountains for several days, the kids found a place to play in what looked like a mountain. They chose to do laser tag over paintball because they didn't want to mess up their clothes, and it was cool to see this underground business park. On the 29th, we drove to Nashville, Tennessee. The road conditions were good and the speed limit was 75 in Missouri before going back down to 70. It was great to have a major city like St. Louis in the middle of our drive because we stopped there for lunch and found a great dive. It was a New Orleans style seafood restaurant near the Arch, and it was top notch. On December 30th, we stopped in downtown Knoxville where people were hanging out enjoying the holidays. We had a late lunch and dessert, then got back on the road. The drive to Knoxville was uneventful. Then BJ drove through Asheville, and I discovered I like it better when I drive in this area because being a passenger made me car sick with all the winding roads, inclines, and declines. I guess it's something about being in control that calms my stomach even though it wrecks my nerves. After this drive, we believe we're finished with cross-country road trips since we've traveled through all 48 states in the continental U.S. Places we ate were Jack Brown's and Aunt Vi's in Greenville, North Carolina, a Nets Catch in Knightdale, North Carolina, Urban Plate and Ruth Chris in Tysons, Virginia, the Cake Café at National Harbor in Maryland, Carolina Kitchen in Washington, D.C., Sis Sweets and Family Bistro in Leavenworth, Kansas, Billy Sims Barbecue in Hayes, Kansas, Broadway Oyster Bar in St. Louis, Missouri, Arthur Bryant's Barbecue, Giovanni's Italian Deli, and Christopher Elbow Chocolate in Kansas City, Missouri, Matt's Barbecue Food Truck, Koi Fusion Food Truck, and Miss Delta in Portland, Oregon, Three Girls Bakery and Pike Place Chowder in Seattle, Washington, King Buffet in Renton, Washington. We also tried Sweet Peaks Ice Cream in Bozeman, Montana, Godfather's Pizza and Rib and Chop House in Cheyenne, Wyoming, Big Shakes in Nashville, Tennessee, then Stock and Barrel and Cruise Farm in Knoxville, Tennessee, Full Moon and Kill Winds in Morrisville, North Carolina. Places we explored were Tysons Galleria in Tysons, Virginia, Howard University in Washington, D.C., Market Square in Knoxville, Tennessee, and Gasworks Park in Seattle, Washington. New places we played were Jaegers at Subtropolis in Kansas City, Missouri. Then it feels like we played in Wyoming and Oregon because this is where we encountered some of the heaviest snow. The road was covered with snow. At times, it seemed as if we were in a snowmobile. In Oregon, tractor trailers or long-distance trucks were required to add chains to their tires. And this was concerning to us because although we were in an SUV, we didn't have snow tires. The tracks from other vehicles made it easier to drive in the snow, but the snowplows made it even better. Some people were really impatient with them, but we were grateful for their service. Our tip for this trip is fighting fear by focusing on a feature. Living in the Southeast most of our lives, whenever mountains were mentioned, it was a metaphor for a big obstacle to get over. Since we've lived elsewhere, we've discovered that some people really love mountains. However, since we didn't grow up around them and thought of them as obstacles, sometimes they can be really intimidating. On our cross-country trips, we discovered some mountains are more intimidating than others, but their height is secondary to the roads we take to get through them. There are times when the roads are tight or narrow and there is no shoulder. This is intimidating because there is no area to use in case of an emergency. Then there are times when it's evident the Department of Transportation did their thing and did it well because roadways near mountains are wide with good shoulders and there are gradual inclines and declines. This is our preference and our mind is at ease because the infrastructure took planning and the planners were strategic in how and where to build. It's common for us to avoid mountains and take the easy road, but doing so restricts us and doesn't get us everywhere we want or need to go. So we usually focus on some other feature like the river and Douglas fir trees in Oregon and Washington State. Deciduous or colorful trees in the fall and snow-covered settings are also nice focal points. This was fun, but we have to pause in answering, where y'all been? If you enjoyed it, like it and share it. To hear more stories about our family travels, subscribe to this channel and choose the notification bell.